I'd like to know how you would have voted for the motion that was put on the table that basically upheld the level of concurrency. Therefore, the additional housing at City Center would not be built until the infrastructure issues were addressed.
So let's start with the mayor, because obviously you were in the meeting, right?
I was.
Or were there, I'm sorry?
She was at the
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, so yes, I was at the meeting. So the motion was not relative to a moratorium, just for clarification. It was a motion relative to upholding the volume to capacity ratio that we adopted as a two-part piece of concurrency. Again, concurrency is how we measure the impact of new developments trips on our existing infrastructure. So the volume is very simple. It's the number of cars that pass over a counter strip that the city puts down on the roadway. The capacity is somewhat, I alluded to this earlier, we had a capacity number for every foot of sidewalk, shoulder, bike lane, regional trail. We gave 580 cars a pass for every foot. The regional trail down there on the parkway is 12 feet. The shoulders are 5 feet. You can start doing the math and realize how many cars we let go down East Lake Sammamish Parkway before we triggered concurrency. So I did vote on that, and I voted to uphold it because those were both of we had level of service at intersections, volume to capacity ratio. We had both of those before. We just altered them and made them more accurate so that they're an accurate reflection of the impact of the new trips that are generated on our roadways.
So Karen, how was?
Sure. So first, was I at the meeting? I was at least one of the meetings, and I watched the second one probably online. And I would have voted for the current model for a couple of reasons, or the one that's most currently in force. Because we have spent an awful lot of time and an awful lot of money with really good people and our own city staff, who, by the way, are actually really good people, to work on this concurrency model. So yeah, I wasn't going to go against what they had recommended because they are the experts and it did make sense. And I understood what the goal was here. And it was to try to allow us to give a little bit of breathing room, an opportunity to try to catch up, if at all possible, with our traffic concerns. What I would like to add to that, though, is I would like to add transit as something that is also measured, and to get credit for adding that transit. So it's not just capacity, it's modality. What are the modalities that we could add to our concurrency model that actually upgrade it and make it better and stronger? It's the way that Redmond does it. So that's something that I would suggest that we could improve on. And I can end there.
Okay.
Okay, so for those of you who want just a little more depth, the VOC numbers that we're talking about, 1.1 and 1.4, what do they mean? 1.1 means 110% of volume compared to capacity. So when you rate a road at 1.1, what you're saying is that road won't fail until it actually reaches 110% of its given capacity. It's a very full road. The VOC that was passed, which I would have voted for if I was there, was 1.1 for the whole section and 1.4 for small specific areas. What was proposed and what wasn't passed was 1.5 and 1.7. What this means is for the road to fail, it would have had to have 150% of its given capacity occurring, or 170%. Imagine 170% of its capacity before it failed. That was not passed. The 1.1 and 1.4 were passed. So what are the point on this? This was applied to specifically Sahali up here, okay? Sahali was put through this concurrency. It failed initially. It then came back when they ran it again. Sahali is now passed. These 419 units that passed, only 50 trips off plateau were attributed to 419 units. So 419 units worth of people going off the plateau only make 50 trips. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Can I ask a clarifying question? The August 20th date that you stated there,
August 20th. So there was a
was that the special meeting
Yes,
that was called?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I was at that meeting.
Were you at the May 23rd?
I was also at the May 23rd meeting on the concurrency model that they were talking about. And the reality is, I waffle a little bit because I probably would have gone with the compromise and gone with the 1.2 on the oversee and 1.4, which is what was passed. But the reality is I live on East Lake Sammamish Parkway, and I had a thought that it really needs to be 1.0, which is capacity. So I may not have voted for it in that I would want it to be stricter. And here's the reason why. It became pretty clear to me, and it has now become very clear from the August 20th meeting, that developers were going to step into the city and they were going to dump all the traffic in their models down onto East Lake Sammamish Parkway because it's been exempt, right? And so that way they can just keep moving all their traffic off the top of the hill for as long as they want to down on the East Lake Sammamish Parkway. I live on East Lake Sammamish Parkway. I don't want that traffic coming there. And half of it and most of it isn't really even going to come down there. It's going to go off 228. It's going to come down to Hollywood. So we might have missed the boat on that one.
Patricia, what do you think?
I was at the May 23rd meeting and I was online on the August 20th meeting. And as part of Planning Commission, the process, the way it works is, typically the City Council has a work plan, they have an agenda, and they send it off to the Planning Commission to work on it. It was a little different with the transportation element, but I was on the Planning Commission and we voted for the view oversee that was suggested by the council. So I voted yes on that and I will vote yes again. Thanks.
Karen?
Okay. Let's see, several things. I'm not real clear which meeting was what, so I'm going to talk in general about several of the meetings. One basic problem I think we have is we totally focused on the concurrency without having done a transportation master plan. The reason that is so important is once we start working better with our regional entities like Issaquah and Redmond and with Sound Transit and King County Metro to help with our transit solutions. See, every organization that's talking about how to improve traffic is talking about using transit. And we in this city do not even have a transportation master plan. So if you don't have a master plan and you work at roads piecemeal, how are you going to have a full solution? We've got to have that, so when we have more development, we have roads that can go through. There's development sitting in our city that are sitting where roads could have been. The other thing I want to mention is one of the things that happened is the council pushed this transportation plan clear to the end, and they have to do a transportation improvement plan. The concurrency was set so low, the capacity set so low that it actually forced Sahali to fail, and we're looking at this one road instead of the full picture. And also, they were so late at the deadline that if they hadn't passed that, they would have lost $9 million in total grants and $20 million in future grants.
So how would you have voted if you were at that meeting on the council?
Which meeting is, I'm not
The
sure.
May 23rd meeting,
What was that? The view receipt.
the one that we just.
To set the
I
capacity.
gave you the whole.
I would have voted for the capacity